Some couples, they kiss softly, and then, before you know it, they're fighting. They say beautiful words, and then they say horrible things to each other. Why does human love look so complicated?
We love with conditions. And because of these conditions and attachments, we have so much expectations that we place on each other. Hi everyone, welcome to the Isha Judd Podcast. Thank you for joining us again for episode 2. And today we're going to be discussing interpersonal relationships and romantic relationships. And our special guest, Elizabeth, is returning by popular demand. So I'm very happy that you've come back to listen to this podcast. And hello, Betchie. Thank you for joining us again.
I'm very, very well. Thank you for inviting me again, Isha.
Well, everyone was so happy with you in the last podcast. It looks like you're going to be a permanent feature.
Wow, how exciting. I couldn't imagine I'd become permanent. I'm doing my very best in every moment.
Okay, Betchie, so what is it that you wish to discuss today?
Well, I was thinking, I think a lot, you know that. But I was thinking that sometimes we sit together and we watch romantic stories on Netflix. I get very confused. They call them love stories, but what I see doesn't feel like love. Well, at least it's not like the love that you and I share. Some couples, they kiss softly, and then, before you know it, they're fighting. They say beautiful words, so romantic, and then they say horrible things to each other. They hold each other, and all of a sudden they push each other away. And sometimes they cry, and sometimes they leave, and sometimes they return as if nothing happened. Just watching it makes me feel very, very heavy inside. And sometimes I feel so sad. And then sometimes they say to each other, I can't live without you. After all of this drama, I can't live without you. I thought they'd want to not live together. I get really, really shocked, and the humans are confusing me more than they've ever confused me in my life.
I know, Betchy, humans are very strange. You know, the thing is, you as a dog, you love unconditionally. But humans don't love unconditionally, Betchy. We love with conditions. And because of these conditions and attachments, we have so much expectations that we place on each other. We expect each other to behave a certain way, and if they don't behave that way, we don't feel loved. And then we get angry. If they're not loving enough, we get angry. If they look at someone else, we get jealous. Humans have a multitude of ways of responding to what you perceive as the same situation. And why is this? It's because humans have contractual love. It's not unconditional. It's not internal. You love me unconditionally. And it doesn't matter what sort of mood I'm in, what I do, Betchy, you always are loving me unconditionally. But humans have many, many conditions. And sometimes it's very intimate and very beautiful, and sometimes it's very violent and very destructive. And this is because the love is attached and it's full of fear. It's not free.
Well, I need to understand why they can't have free love.
Well, free love, Betchy, is an internal experience. When you start loving yourself unconditionally, You can love other people unconditionally. But when you don't love yourself unconditionally, it's impossible. And the interesting thing is, the people that we love the most are our biggest mirrors. They show us the places of ourselves that we're not loving. We learn all of our patterns from our parents, and then we recreate our parents in relationships. So until we heal these initial relationships, we never have free flowing love and communication. There's always expectations. We don't feel free to be ourselves. We can't be honest because we're afraid of losing something. It's not just flowing, it's not just innocent. And this is what happens with humans.
I'm going to give you an example, Isha. You know, when I'm with you, we are so in peace and we laugh a lot and we enjoy going for nice walks on the beach and everything's very lovely. And sure, when you leave the room, I miss you, but I still feel like myself. I still breathe. They say to their partners, "You are mine." But when I hold something too tightly, you gently help me to let it go because you say, "I'm hurting myself." Why do the humans hold each other as if they're afraid to lose something? Sometimes in the stories, they stop speaking to each other. They sit close, but their bodies feel far away, like closed and very, very tense. Sometimes they smile, but their eyes, they look worried. And sometimes they say, "I love you," but everything in them feels tight. It doesn't feel like love to me. It feels like fear pretending to be love.
Well, that's true, Betchy. People tell each other what they think they want to hear. They don't necessarily tell each other the truth. Of course, on some level, they do love each other. That is at the bottom. But sometimes there's so much resentment and so much that's happened in their lives, and they've hurt each other a lot. And it's very hard for them to let go of that resentment. So even though they can't let go of the relationship, they pretend to still feel the same way they did when the love was pure and new. And they keep repeating those actions. But as you say, it doesn't have a lot of depth, it's very superficial. And in order to get that love back, in order to feel pure love all the time, we have to find that within ourselves. We can't expect our partners to give us all the love that we need. We can't expect our partners to fill our internal emptiness. And if we have resentments and if we have judgments, we need to share those so we can let them go. You know, sometimes we hold on to such stupid things, very mundane things in our normal lives, and they affect our very complex relationships. And we need to be aware of that. It's not about ignoring what's happening in the relationship or ignoring what we find annoying. It's about releasing that stress, releasing that fear, being vulnerable and honest with each other so we can move on to a new level. It's not about pretending. But unfortunately, humans have learned to pretend, not to speak the truth, just to act appropriately how they feel they need to act. It's a little bit like what we discussed in the last podcast, but this is more amplified because it's in interpersonal relationships. And it's very sad, as you say, that people can't communicate clearly with spontaneity. They have to keep acting and pretending.
Well, after watching Netflix, I started thinking about my friends. I'm going to give you an example. Maybe this can help the humans a little bit so they can try to have like a more of a puppy love. When dogs care for each other, we stay very close. We play together. We rest together. If one wants space, the other moves away. But there's no drama, no punishment, no pretending everything is fine. It's simple. So I wondered, why does human love look so complicated? Some couples in stories feel soft and calm, like warm sunlight, but many look tired, worried all the time, afraid to lose, afraid to be alone, afraid to say what they feel. Is that human too? Or are humans forgetting something? What do you see, Isha, when you watch all of this?
Well, Betchy, what you observe is very precise. And most of what humans call love isn't love, it's control and fear and attachment. But once we start to stabilize love consciousness within ourselves, we let go of the control because the fear leaves. And when the fear's gone, we can love unconditionally. We can give people space. We can feel our feelings. And another thing that's so important, we can help each other evolve and give each other wings. You know, when there's all this control and separation and attachment, we always hold each other down because we're so afraid of losing something. So yes, it's true. It's not real love. We're doing the best we can, but we can do more by working on ourselves and really stabilizing an internal experience of unconditional love. With that love, you give everyone the freedom to do whatever they want to do.
And what about when they say, "I can't live without you"? What are they really saying?
Well, Betsy, what they're really saying is they don't know how to be by themselves. And that's the saddest thing because we're never taught from when we're children to be by ourselves, to be in the moment, to be loving with ourselves, and to love ourselves unconditionally. We're always looked and taught to get approval externally. And this is something we're trying to change by finding that internal unification with our head and our heart. Once our heart starts to rule our lives instead of the nagging of our intellect, we start to experience this internal freedom and we start to flow more with nature. We start to flow more in each moment. But when we're rigid and stuck in our head and full of stress, we can't flow with anything. So it's like everything I teach to unify with yourself, with your heart, and come back to the essence of who you truly are instead of the madness of the human experience. We start to find that flow. And when we have flow, the people we meet as we travel down the river enhance our lives. They don't stop us from being in the moment. They don't stop us from reaching our full potential. They encourage us to be the best of who we are. Like I encourage you, Betchy, and like you encourage me. We're always trying to be the best of who we are we not?
Yeah. Another thing I saw when I was watching those Netflix programs, which I must say I enjoy very much. They're very good. I especially like the popcorn that mommy gives. But anyway, let's get back to the point. The point is, the point is that Netflix is very good, but and popcorn is very good, but sometimes there's so much violence. And I see people saying, "I love you," and then they just about kill each other. I really don't understand when people stay in these horribly violent relationships. You know, if you keep kicking a dog, the dog will run away. Dogs are not stupid. The minute they can get out of there, they're out.
Yes, well, that's extreme codependency. And some people are so afraid of being by themselves that they stay in the most horrific situations. And sometimes they've come from a very violent childhood, or sometimes bit by bit they've learned not to love themselves and to not think they're worthy of love. And this is the saddest thing, because they have more fear of change than they have of staying in what could eventually be a very traumatic situation. Sometimes they have children, sometimes they have financial commitments, sometimes they're just too afraid to try anything new, and they don't believe they deserve anything new.
Well, how can we help these people? How can we help them to go through their fears so they can leave violent situations? Because I don't like that they stay there. I don't like that that man hit that woman in front of the children. I don't like that he coming home drunk. And I don't like that the children are watching these behaviors, because they'll start to copy the parents. And the next thing we know, everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's hitting each other, drinking too much, and the children are copying. And I'm worried that they'll start to believe that that's normal, that it's okay to be like that.
And sadly, you're right, Betchy. That's the problem. Because if we keep witnessing something all of our lives, even though intellectually we negate that it should be allowed, often children copy their parents and they become addicted and they get into violent relationships and they start to believe that that's okay. So, where do we stop? Where do we start to make big changes? For me, it's teaching humans to love themselves, because when you teach a human how fundamental it is to find silence, to unify in their hearts, to be in the present moment, to feel their feelings, to basically put themselves first in the sense that they are the source of love. So when they're loving themselves, we're giving love externally. And this is something we have to educate humans to do. And the parents, when they change, the children change automatically. So we're always talking about trying to change the world. But the truth is, we have to educate differently. We have to teach children what's important: to have good self-esteem, to not compare, to be the best of who they are, to love themselves unconditionally, to put limits. All of these things have to be incorporated in our education system, because if we're just copying dysfunctional family behavior, nothing will ever change. When someone doesn't feel safe inside Betchy, they look for that security in another human being, but unfortunately they can't find it there, because another human being cannot give you self-worth. It's something you have to cultivate yourself. So maybe, Betchy, you can give the humans some advice of how to love themselves and how to have better interpersonal relationships, like puppy love.
Yeah. I'm going to give them an example of how dogs behave. We call this puppy love. First and foremost, you don't stay with someone because you're afraid. You stay with someone because you feel at ease. You don't manipulate, you just respond naturally. You don't pretend, you feel. I feel that humans have lost this simplicity because they're always living inside their thoughts instead of inside their experience. Most suffering that I see in Netflix, which I study very carefully, is that they suffer because they leave themselves. Each time someone stays silent when their truth wants to speak, they leave themselves. Each time someone agrees, when their body says no, they leave themselves. This is fear. This is not freedom. Love is not something you do. It's something that appears when you stop fighting yourself. When two people meet, without abandoning themselves, without pretending, without trying to be someone else, the relationship becomes a space of freedom, not a cage. So you need to pause, go deep inside, and think. Am I in the moment? Am I feeling free? And more importantly, am I at peace with myself? And can I sit with this person in unconditional love? So pause. Always we have to pause and ask ourselves these very, very, very deep questions.
I think you're right, Betchie. I think if we stop instead of reacting and responding and ask ourselves these very, very, very deep questions, we can see how we can create more love in our lives, less conflict, less demands, and less attachment, and have the capacity to flow in every moment with the love that's always around us. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. I hope that you enjoyed it and learnt something from Betchie's profound wisdom. And we look forward to seeing you on next week's episode 3. I'm Isha Judd. If you like what you saw, push like, and please remember to subscribe. Goodbye for now, and Elizabeth?
To all my fans, I'll see you next week. I'm permanent now.